On.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday, June 9th, 2021 Chatham Airport Commission meeting, beginning at 5 o'clock. I'll read the usual statement by the governor pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, section 38, subsection 18, and the governor's March 23rd, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Chatham Airport Commission is being conducted via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 508-945-4410 with the conference ID of 273-161-803, followed by the pound sign. Or you can join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. Despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access, and we will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. That said, I will do our roll call. Commissioner Burke.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Cortese.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Donovan. Commissioner Galen.
Present.
Commissioner Owens. Unmute, Dave. Commissioner Owens. I know he's there. Oh, maybe he's having trouble. Yeah, I think he just sent me a text message saying he was having trouble connecting. All right. Commissioner Wilcox. Okay, and Commissioner Harrison is present. So it looks like we're missing Commissioner Wilcox and Commissioner Donovan and Commissioner Owens, at least for the time being. Okay. Let's start off with public announcements and agenda item requests, not for tonight, but for future meetings, please. Let me see if I can, if you have an agenda item request, please raise your hand and I will recognize you. Oh, just a minute, Mr. Buckley. I need to go through the minutes. I'm going to back up here for just a second. I skipped it over. Do any of the commissioners have any comments, corrections, additions, deletions to the minutes of May 12th, 2021? If so, let me know. Okay, hearing none, I will call for a vote to accept the minutes. Commissioner Burke.
Accept.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cortese.
Accept, yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Donovan, are you on yet? Okay. Commissioner Galen.
Yes.
Commissioner Owens. Not there yet. Commissioner Wilcox.
Yes.
Thank you. And Commissioner Harrison, yes. So it looks like just Commissioner Donovan and Commissioner Owens. All right, so they carry. And we will now move to public announcements, but I will ask everyone who is not a commissioner to please mute their microphones unless I recognize you to ask a question. And also please turn off your video. I would appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay, So public announcements and agenda item requests. Mr. Buckley.
Yes, this may already be something that's addressed or is located someplace I'm unaware of, but I guess I'd like to request that the commission have as an agenda item an explanation to the public of how it selects its agenda items, because it seems that there's been a number of them, but I never know what happens to them. So maybe how those items are selected or screened or considered would be in itself an agenda item. So thank you. That's it.
Okay. And also, it doesn't seem like I can lower hands this evening. Somehow I've lost that type of connection. So once you've spoken, everybody, if you could please lower your hand, I would appreciate it. That way I won't get confused. Commissioner Wilcox.
I'm sorry I'm late getting on.
It's okay.
Did I skip the public announcements before all this stuff? Oh, no, Mr. Chairman.
Doing public announcements and agenda item requests for future meetings right now.
Okay. Mr. Chair, at last month's meeting, I realized I had two areas of concern, which I'd like the commission with Matt's assistant to address. Option 4, and again, that's in the master plan as well as the AE, currently states the need to acquire 21 easements in order that the new approach be implemented.
You need to turn your volume down a little.
Is that number of easements the absolute minimum required for that option to be taken?
Okay. What else?
Well, can I get that answered, please?
No, these are announcements and agenda item requests for future meetings. So if you don't have a public announcement for now or an agenda item request for a future meeting, we'll move on.
Again, I'd like to have that answered. When do I interject that, Mr. Chair? Please let me know.
I believe we'll take care of that probably at the next meeting. Unless it comes up as part of the information tonight.
The assessment includes the options within the assessment. So can I bring it up at that point?
You can bring it up as a comment when we get to that section. Yeah.
Thank you.
You said you had two things.
I think I'll hold off on the other one until that point, until I get to a point where I think I can bring it in. Thank you.
All right. Okay, next, Susan, if you could lower your hand, please, that would be nice. Thank you. Renee Haas.
Thank you, Chairman Harrison. I just want to point out that when I view the people that are in the meeting, this is you could consider this an announcement. We have 25 presenters and 3 attendees. You are one of the only people who are attendees. Everyone else is a presenter. So something, in terms of the way the meeting was set up, that's why you can't lower hands. It seems backwards. We got 25 presenters and a few attendees. So just so you know.
Yeah. Now this is a technical glitch. Dallas, are you there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is this something you can fix, or are we just gonna have to live with it?
Like I said before, I'd have you sign out and come back in, and I don't know if you want to do that right now. It's not the biggest thing in the world. It's up to you.
I think we can live with it as long as people cooperate with lowering their hand.
Sounds good to me. Thanks, only.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Renee. Was that it? Renee?
Yes,
that it?
yes, that was it. That was it, Huntley.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, apparently we can't do anything with that.
Okay, just so you're aware.
Okay. All right, and the next section is, yes. The next section is public comments on new business. new business items. This is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Mr. Owens or Commissioner Owens, are you ready with the clock? Are you on yet? Not yet. Commissioner Galen, could you have a watch you could keep track of time, please?
Okay, I'll get a clock.
All right. Actually, I think what I'm going to do, since the public comments on new business is really concerned with the new business, I think I'll incorporate the two, and I'll just move to the airport manager's report, and then we'll go to the engineer's report, which will be the public comments on new business. So we'll handle it that way. So, Mr. Howard, are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay, if you could give us your manager's report, please.
Of course. Okay, as per the package for today's meeting, we have the May guard report attached. Item number 1. Item number 2, as we alluded to in the previous report last month, Chatham Fire Rescue did conduct their tech team ditch and trench rescue training at the airport on Tuesday, May 18th. Item number 3, only 2 days later, we hosted Boston Med Flight conducting training with one of the helicopters with the Chatham Fire Department and Police Department at the airport. There's a couple pictures attached. That was an interesting day. I'm sorry, there's 2 number 3s. The next item should be number 4. Just to drawing attention to the need for pavement reseal between the H1 and H2 hangars in that ramp area. We are currently mowing down there because of going in the pavement, and that's accelerating the configuration of that pavement section. So we really need to get on some type of crack sealing before the winter season is upon us. That is the last item. Any questions on that?
Is that item number 3 something we have to wait for MassDOT to do, or is that something that we could do to take care of it in the meantime?
In the past, MassDOT has participated in assisting with crack sealing, but mainly on runways and main taxiways. Rarely have they done our ramp areas. They have a few times. It just depends on what their budget is. I know of nothing at this time of any crack sealing projects they have going. I will inquire again tomorrow with them to see if there's anything on the horizon, but I'm thinking more than likely if there is, we wouldn't be eligible in those areas. We would probably have to fund that locally with the revolving fund. So we may need to procure a crack sealing contractor, on our own.
All right, well, see what you can find out tomorrow, and if we'll see if we can maybe get some some quotes on what it might cost to take care of that.
We'll look into it, and I'll have you quotes and a report for next time.
Okay, let me know. I know of an asphalt vendor that might be able to help us out.
Great. Yeah, anybody who's got knows anyone would be good, because right now getting any contractor to do anything is very difficult. Everyone is swamped with work.
Right. Okay. Anything else? Anybody have any questions for the airport manager? Okay, in that case, I'll entertain a motion to accept the airport manager's report.
Motion to accept?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Commissioner Burke?
Yes.
Commissioner Cortese?
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan? Not yet. Commissioner Galen?
Yes.
Commissioner Owens? Commissioner Wilcox? You're muted, Susan.
Yes.
Thank you. And Commissioner Harrison, yes. Okay, so no problems there. All right. Next on the agenda is the engineer's report, and I will turn that over to Matt Karen from GALE Associates.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, commissioners. Two projects right now that GALE is administering on behalf of the airport. The first one is the environmental assessment. The draft EA has been posted to the commission's website for review and comments by the commission and public. The comment period is going to run through July 6, 2021. We're going to receive comments, review the comments, work with the commission, the FAA and Mass DOT, and where applicable, address and incorporate those comments into the final EA. Mr. Chairman, I know you're taking comments this evening on the EA, so I don't have anything else on that unless you have questions for me at this time on that.
When we move on to that, I think if you finish item number 2, we'll do item number 2, and then we'll come back to open it up.
Okay, so item number 2 is the master plan, and the only update I have this month is we are working to complete the closeout package for the master plan. And Huntley, I'll be coordinating with you as your signature is required on that before we submit that to the FAA. So expect that probably by the end of the week.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. We will now go back to the environmental assessment, and just so everyone who's listening this evening and knows what the procedure is, we are accepting comments only. We will not be answering questions. Let me repeat that. We will not be answering your questions. We will be accepting the comments, and then those comments will be logged for review by the FAA, the Airport Commission, and GALE Associates, and MassDOT, I might add. So we are here to listen, and obviously the meeting is being recorded and the minutes will be transcribed. So your comments will be in the minutes as the official record. You can also, if you don't feel like speaking this evening, you're certainly welcome to send an email to the Airport Commission, and that will suffice also as part of the record. I will forward those on to the appropriate people for retention as part of the record. So I think we can move ahead with the discussion and comments on the environmental assessment. And again, remember, we are just accepting your comments. So go ahead, Commissioner Wilcox.
I'd just like to mention this, Huntley. I've had some calls about where the environmental assessment might be available to the public. There are more than a few people that do not have computers, and I'm wondering if there can be some copies either made for the library or the town hall, because again, I've had people saying that they have not been able to access it because they don't have computers, and there's problems getting to the library. Just so that make sure that anybody has any questions, they can forward those to you.
I'll have to look into that. I'll have to talk to Terry Whalen when he comes back, because he does all our copying, things like that. We'll see what we can do.
Because again, there's an issue with people not being able to access it. Thank you.
How many?
I got about 8 or 9 calls and I stopped it.
You should have had them call me, because I might have been able to accommodate them.
You would have what?
I said I might have been able to accommodate them or explain, the situation to them as far as hard copy. But we'll see what we can do.
Thank you.
Okay. Was that it?
For now, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Please lower your hand. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am Tom Wilson. I am a resident of West Chatham. I'm a former airport commissioner, and I'm a current select board candidate, but I'm speaking today as a private citizen. I'm concerned that the environmental assessment is downplaying the human impact of the proposed new approach at Chatham Airport. For over 70 years, when a plane approaches Chatham Airport and is unable to see its runway at 600-foot altitude, and that's called the ceiling, the plane must land at an alternate airport, most often at Barnstable. This ceiling limitation has been an important factor in the superior safety record of our town-owned airport. And that's easy to understand because as clouds and fog roll into Chatham, landings are restricted. FAA guidance advises that for the safety of people and property on the ground, the areas just past the ends of the runway be preserved as open space. These areas are referred to as runway protection zones, or RPZs. Over the years, the repeated failure by the town and by the Airport Commission to follow the FAA guidance has created safety risks for many residents now living, working, and shopping near the airport. What has helped offset this increased risk is the 600-foot ceiling limit. But now our Airport Commission is attempting to lower the limit. Everyone wants safer approaches to our airport. No one is against more safety. Implementing technology to improve safety during approaches to Chatham is a good change. However, linking that implementation to lowering the 600-foot ceiling is one issue that has residents legitimately concerned. History has shown that inclement weather, like fog and clouds, are the most common conditions for accidents at general aviation airports like Chatham. Lowering the ceiling will unquestionably increase the number of landings in these hazardous conditions. And remember, there are many homes right under the approaches, and there are no functional runway protection zones here at our airport. So what's the answer? Well, it's really quite simple. Our Airport Commission is currently petitioning the FAA to issue 2 exceptions for their preferred new technology approach. The answer is simply add a 3rd exception and request for the ceiling to remain at 600 feet. Keeping the 600-foot ceiling will result in fewer landings in low visibility conditions. This means that the same visibility conditions that have worked so well here for over 70 years will continue going forward and will still act as the safety net that helps protect people and property on the ground. Keep the 600-foot ceiling as is. And that will still let the Airport Commission bring new technology to our airport. This is a human impact that needs to be included in the environmental assessment. I'm requesting that the Airport Commission create and send to the FAA, and that the FAA acknowledge that the 600-foot ceiling has played a significant role in our safety history, and that our commission request an exception to keep the ceiling here at Chatham at 600 feet. I'm also requesting that my comments be sent verbatim to the FAA. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please lower your hand. I think you already did, but thank you anyway for your comment. Ms. Lofgren.
Good evening, Chairman Harrison. Thank you very much. I have comment on 3 separate items in the draft EA. The first is on 4.2.2, development of hangars. The proposed action is to provide the needs of airport users and to meet hangar demands at the airport. At a time when the necessity of non-essential air travel is being questioned and measures that reduce carbon emissions in all areas of transportation are being investigated, the development of hangars seems to be at odds with the town's efforts in this area. It seems to be in the direct opposite to the implementation of projects that reduce individual citizens' production of carbon emissions, and for the aircraft burning avgas, the production of leaded carbon emissions.
Okay, what's the second one?
Oh, wait a minute. Have I been muted this whole time?
No,
Oh, okay. I noticed a mute there. Can you hear me now, Mr. Harrison?
Yes, ma'am. Go
Okay.
right ahead.
Second thing, the draft document is in favor of the new hangars, even though it does make note there'll be an environmental impact of 118,000 square feet of additional impervious surface on our aquifer. The project would result in the clearing of land, cutting down trees and vegetation, and replacing it with buildings and asphalt. At a time when Chatham is struggling with the issue of saving open space to mitigate climate change, while at the same time looking for appropriate locations for affordable housing, this draft document conveys the message that 22 hangars for personal aircraft are more important than in preserving open space. And a question for you, I know it will not be answered, is that one of the airport impacts noted is that the proposed hangars will result in additional sources of revenue for the airport. But if the hangars are to be built with private funds, where is the revenue source to the airport revolving fund? Second section, navigation easements. The preferred alternative 4.1.4 states that, quote, there are no environmental impacts associated with the acquisition of navigation easements, close quote. The draft document refers to homes as parcels and does not recognize that many of these parcels are residences to which the human impact of homeowners' reduced property values will be considerable. The summary for the project states that this alternative positions the airport to preserve its revenue for private fuel sales, hangar revenue, and tourism, and is it at the expense of the personal financial well-being of the homeowners on the navigation easement listing. In my estimation, even one easement will have a detrimental economic effect on the human environment. And finally, section 6.7.5, climate. And I quote from the document, although there are currently no federal standards for aviation-related greenhouse gas emissions, it is well established that GHG emissions can affect climate. And while the project would ultimately result in a slight increase in aircraft traffic and associated GHG emissions, it is anticipated that this increase would have a negligible impact on climate. At a time when Chatham, Cape Cod, and the entire world is working to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to the highest extent possible, including in the aviation industry, this document actually states that their increase is perfectly acceptable and has negligible environmental impact. It is often stated that we are all in this together, but it appears the airport is not part of that plan. Climate change is real and affects everyone in the human environment here. In closing, I would like to request that the Airport Commission revisit the findings of this draft document and develop an assessment that is in line with the environmental policies of the town of Chatham in which it's located and the residents who support the airport in so many ways. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your comments. I have an M&M guest. I don't know. Sorry, don't know your name.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am Michael Thompson, and I will be very concise. My view is that this draft EEA should not be called an environmental assessment, as it primarily discusses processes. This draft states that the purpose of the proposed actions is to comply with FAA airport safety design standards, but which design standards? New facilities are discussed, such as instrument approaches and converting from a Type 2 runway.
Oh, you just went mute, Mr. Thompson. Sorry. No, still mute.
I unmuted. I'm sorry.
There you go.
So I start again.
No, just pick up where you were.
Oh, okay. New facilities are discussed, such as instrument approaches and converting from a Type 2 runway to a Type 4 runway. These would change the character of the airport and have a major impact on traffic, the environment, and the safety of people, which are not discussed in the EA. The issue of increasing the number of navigation easements for instrument TERPs approach surfaces rather than the original Part 77 approach surfaces are obfuscated. But make no mistake, the proposed need for TERPs is new and requires much larger approach surfaces and more tree cutting, particularly in the wetlands. This draft EA is about economics. It mentions a reduction in possible revenue from car rentals and the airport's role in the National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems, which could allow 2,500 scheduled passengers a year. So in case you are in any doubt, this is all about commercializing the airport. This EA is called for under the National Environmental Policy Act. The explicit goal of NEPA is productive harmony between humans and their environment, Mr. Doucette. This draft EA expresses concern for enhanced safety for pilots, passengers, neighboring properties, and aircraft. But there is zero concern for people living, working, and shopping in the RPZ hazard zones and others living under the densely populated flight paths. They would have to endure more extreme noise and psychological effects of larger, low-flying aircraft, even noisier than the OSHA threshold level of 85 dB, and I've measured them greater than 85 dB. In fact, the categories of socioeconomic, safety risks, land use, and noise were not even considered in this EA. There is nothing here about productive harmony. A 1959 photo that I have shows a new tarmac extension being built right up to the wetlands. The FAA writes that airport designers establishing the threshold for a visual approach should allow for the future implementation of an instrument approach because of penetrations to the instrument approach surfaces. Guess what? That is exactly what was not done, and that is exactly the situation at Chatham Airport today. However, this draft EA does identify an alternative solution. It is to displace the thresholds. This eliminates the need for navigation easements and would move people and West Chatham out of the RPZ hazard zones.
Excuse me, we're at 3 minutes and 40 seconds at this point.
Okay. Executing an EA at this time was actually rejected by our select representatives of the town as airport sponsor. So this 345,000 draft activity has not even been authorized by the airport sponsor. Anyway, it makes no sense to have the town spend millions of dollars and destroy habitat and people's property when aeronautical technology is about to undergo such dramatic changes with electric propulsion and vertical takeoff. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. I will remind some of the people who have their hands up, all we want tonight is comments that are either in support of the EA or comments about the EA. I don't want rebuttals to previous speakers because that's not what tonight is for. So if anyone has their hand up and is thinking of a rebuttal statement to a previous speaker, please, we will have other times for that in the future. I appreciate your consideration of that as we go forward. Dr. Thompson, could you please lower your hand so I can keep track of people here? Mr. Haas, we're going to come back. Oh no, no, you're okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Harrison. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So just to introduce myself, my name is Renee Haas, and I am a resident of Chatham, former airport commissioner, and an instrument-rated pilot with over 2,300 flight hours and many years of instrument experience. My comments are that I have 10 brief comments. 1, the proposed approach is called for, and alternative 4 will more accurately and consistently guide aircraft to Chatham. 2, the new approaches will guide aircraft at a safe altitude above people's homes, never lower than current approaches in effect today. 3, the approaches will be quieter for everyone as aircraft are guided down steadily on a low power setting, overflying fewer homes than today. 4, the approaches have been proven by the FAA to be far safer for all, on the ground and in the air, based on many years of accident statistics. 5, most airports in our region have already implemented these safer approaches, and why should Chatham be a laggard in this? 6, implementing the approaches will allow us to decommission the obsolete radio beacons that are currently in use, freeing space for a future solar array and moving Chatham Airport toward a zero carbon footprint. So this is actually a very strong green initiative. 7, unlike the current obsolete radio beacon, the new approaches will require no maintenance whatsoever, reducing costs. 8, the proposed alternative 4 greatly reduces the number of impacted properties to 21 from the originally envisioned 46 in the airport master plan update. This shows that GALE Associates and the Commission has worked hard to minimize property impacts while maintaining the high safety levels of the GPS-guided approaches. Number 9, the number of trees that are affected will be less than the tree clearing typically done to build just a single-family home. 10, the proposed approaches would have a minimal impact on overall traffic at the airport. A small increase in instrument-guided landings would mostly be offset by a small decrease in landings under clear skies. So I have only one change to the EA that I would like the Commission to consider, namely, in section 2.1, it states that only 11 navigation easements would be required if the town had enforced its airport protection bylaw. While that is true, there is nothing stopping the town from still using the bylaw in lieu of pursuing easements on the 10 protected properties. The EA should be amended to reflect that option. In summary, I strongly support the adoption of the recommended alternative 4. It may not be the 100% solution that's sought by the aviation community, but it's an excellent compromise that balances the need for safety, which this definitely addresses, while at the same time providing for a substantial reduction in the impact to neighboring properties. Thank you, Chairman.
And thank you. Okay, if you could please lower your hand, I would appreciate that. Thank you. Next up, Mr. Backow.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all the members of the Airport Commission. Apologies, I don't have written prepared remarks, but I speak as a chat.
Oh, you just went, we just lost you. I don't know if you can hear me, but your connection just went dead. I see you, but I can't hear you. I don't know if you can hear me. If anyone has his phone number on the commission or someone else, give him a call, let him know that he's frozen.
Sorry, can you guys hear me now?
Now you're back.
All right.
We lost you.
My
Yeah, for a minute.
apologies. Sorry about that. I'll be brief. So I speak as a Chatham homeowner, and I think a lot of this boils down to one, taking care of the things that we have. I think anybody who owns a house, owns a boat, owns a car, you take care of things, and sometimes that means upgrading them, sometimes that means maintaining them. But I think in this case, it doesn't mean having sort of the most obsolete instrument approach anywhere around. And I think we ought to move into the modern age. And I think a lot of it also boils down to safety. Older approaches using these old ground-based beacons, they're not safe for pilots, they're not safe for passengers, but I think most importantly, they're not safe for people on the ground underneath them. And so I think these modern-based approaches that allow people to aircraft to come directly to the airport are safer, both for passengers, pilots, as well as the people on the ground. And lastly, I would just note that an airport that's fully functioning and has modern approaches, it could save your life, right? Any one of us, people who live around Chatham, someday we may need to get to a Boston area hospital in a hurry. And having an airport that can do that very well could save our life. I know there's been things written about angel flights. There's people here that need treatment in hospitals, and this airport does that. So I strongly support the work of the Airport Commission. And I would just echo my other support for alternative number 4 and bringing these approaches into the modern day. Thank you very much.
And thank you. Okay, if you could remember to lower your hand, thank you. I think you did. Okay. Mr. Quinn, unmute. Thank you.
I thank you, Chairman Harrison, and thanks a lot to the airport commissioners for doing this unsung job and having to go through what you have to go through each month. It's yeoman's work, and my hat goes off to you folks. I just need to make a couple corrections, and it does have to do with the EA. We got to be very specific when we talk about airport improvements. Having a 600-foot ceiling ceilings, excuse me, are created by God. That's how low the clouds are. That's the ceiling. And what the pilots fly by is minimums. So we talk about lowering ceilings. Pilots can't do that. Only God does that. When he rolls in the fog, the ceilings are low. When he brings the clouds lower, the ceilings are low. Minimums are what the pilots can go down to. And if I can just echo what Kenneth B. just said, if I was the gentleman or whatever having a heart attack in nearby Chatham, and the airplane that was coming to rescue me could only get down to 600 feet, and the minimums, the ceilings are 500 feet, I can't get in, and that airplane cannot get in to rescue me. And I don't mean to be over dramatic, but I don't think I am, because I've read the same stories that Ken has, and about people having to get to Boston in a hurry. And an ambulance is not the way to get to Boston in a hurry. I can get to Boston in 24 minutes, and that might be a lifesaver. So I just wanted to make those comments. One other comment is these improved runway instrument approaches do not make for more noise. If anybody has ever been up with me flying, and I know some of you have, you know the noise level flying level flight is much more than descending. It's like your car when you're coming up to a red light. If you gun the engine, it makes more noise and you got to slam on the brakes. If you see the red light up ahead, you pull your foot off the accelerator pedal, and what happens to the engine? We all know what happens to the engine. Same thing with an airplane. If you have a guided vertical descent into Chatham, your power is back and it's less noisy, not more noisy, as some have said in editorials and things like that. So I just can't let these little things go, and I don't want to get too technical about it, but after 33,000 flight hours as an international Delta captain, I have a little bit of knowledge on the airline industry. I do not claim to be an expert, but I have flown a lot of hours all over the world. And I know when you go down, you pull the power back. So I don't want to take up any more time, but I just wanted to make those corrections, and also state that the only way to do that is to go with option 4. We have got to get this airport into the 21st century. It's almost embarrassing to have such a nice airport as it is not be able to get in there in bad weather. Not everybody can go to Hyannis, and the people that are paying the big dollars to come here and spend the big dollars on their stays in the resorts aren't going to be happy if that's the answer to the question. Go elsewhere. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to Mr. Buckley.
Okay, is my
We
I
got
don't know if,
you.
I don't know if my video's working, but it doesn't really matter. Can you hear me?
Yep. Both.
Okay. Wait, was that a Roger?
Roger.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not a pilot, so I don't have the expertise of whether or not what's being recommended for proposed projects and improvements in the Chatham Airport in the master plan are justified or anything like that. So I don't want to, but I am an expert in the NEPA process. I used to work for the federal government reviewing environmental assessments, environmental impact statements, and the like. So I do know the process. So, and even if everything in the master plan that's being proposed, the proposed actions, are the best thing in the world, that does not justify shortcuts, cutting corners in the public involvement process, the whole planning process. And that's my experience has been that there's a natural tendency to shortcut the process and ignore the public. And so what I wanted to point out was that it's not clear. The public is, and I would say even the commission is not clear about what role the environmental assessment plays in the decision-making process. The chair has indicated just now today that at some point the FAA and Mass DOT and the commission and private consultant will sit down and sort through our comments and decide what should be given to the FAA. That is highly irregular for a government applicant for funds, for grants, to sit down with the federal agency and sort through what should be in their application. That would be like me going to the IRS and asking, how can I avoid an audit? Can you sit down with me and help me do my taxes? And they'll say, no. No, you can get your consultant, your public accountant to help you. And if we see something, we'll check on it if there are certain flags. And that's the thing. That's what should be happening here. You're an applicant applying. You should not be doing the environmental assessment for them. They will check on it. They are legally responsible for issuing an environmental assessment. This is just a suggested part of an application. You should not be doing their work for them as far as public involvement goes. Public involvement is also a legal requirement of the FAA. It's not a legal requirement for the commission or of the consultant. The FAA is the one that will get in legal trouble for trying to get other people to do their work for them without checking on it. So that's
okay.
I asked for a flow chart. We never got a flow chart. The public cannot be involved in a meaningful way.
Mr. Buckley, if you send me an email, Mr. Buckley, if you send me an email with your request, I'd appreciate it, and then we'll see what we can do for you. If I misled you, if I misled you earlier, we are going to be sending all comments to the FAA. We're not going to sort through them and cherry pick them.
Sounded like you said that a little while ago, or no, I'm sorry, Matt said it, didn't he?
Okay. Your time, your 3 minutes was up. I don't know if you heard the timer, but
thank you.
You have one last closing statement.
No, yeah, just anyone listening to this recording can go back and hear the consultant say that that's what's going to happen. They're going to sit down and figure out how to take all these comments and put them in a way where the FAA can just rubber stamp them.
Okay, that's not quite right, but okay. Thank you very much. Please lower your hand so I don't confuse it going forward. And Mr. Quinn, could you please lower your hand as well? Thank you. Let's see. As soon as these people lower their hand, I can move up in the list. So I need to have those hands lowered. Mr. Buckley, please lower your hand. Mr. Fessenden, please go ahead.
Hi there. This is Hart Fessenden, and I am a Chatham homeowner and someone who's been flying out of the Chatham airport for something in the order of 40 years. I'm very familiar with the conditions around here. And what I hear in this discussion from all sides is that no one is against more safety. That's a quote from one of the earlier speakers. And I think everyone agrees with that. And summarizing a little bit what some of the other earlier proponents said, there's no doubt in my mind that option 4, which is the straight-in GPS approaches, modern GPS approaches, will do a great deal to enhance safety, not only for pilots, but also for people on the ground. And for those of you who are less familiar with airplanes and how it works, effectively, pilots at Chatham Airport are being asked to land by homing in on an AM radio. That technology is from the 1930s. And I think all of us drive around with GPSs in our cars and use that to find our way. And essentially, that's what's being asked here, is that we have modern GPS approaches like all the other airports everywhere. I believe I'm correct in saying that the NDB approach into Chatham is the last one in the state of Massachusetts, and it's probably one of the last ones in the country for that matter. So I think given all that, and given everyone's concern for safety, it's pretty clear in my mind that option 4 is the way to go. I would like to make a side comment that this notion of shortening the runway or displacing the threshold, as people call it, is not going to enhance safety at all. It requires people to land in a shorter distance. And let's face it, the longer the runway, the safer it is. I don't think I'd have to explain that to people how it works. Just think of driving your car and hitting the brakes. So on that note, I will cede my time to the next person. But thank you to the Airport Commission for all your hard work. And I'm fully supporting the EA and option 4.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your comments. And let's see, Commissioner Wilcox.
Hi. Again, I'm going to get back to what I stated before. Option 4, and I support the GPS. Currently states the need to acquire 21 easements in order that the new approach be implemented. And as mentioned before, when this approach was first introduced, there were up to 40 plus easements requested. I am asking to find out what the absolute minimum number of required easements would be in order that this option be implemented. Because I don't necessarily understand how it could have gone from 40 to 20. Can it go lower? That's number 1. And it's been stated that the GPS approach is much safer and direct than what's currently being used. And this goes in conjunction to my last statement. If that's the case, how come we need to have that much more airspace, i.e. easements and trees cut? If it's a safer and more direct approach, why is so much airspace needed, cleared airspace needed for landing in Chatham? Thank you.
Okay.
And I would also like to mention that I have contacted the FAA gentleman who was on at last meeting. I've asked him several of these questions, and Hunley, I'm going to send you his response, and his response was to say, get the information from you guys. So I'm looking forward to hearing answers to my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is Mr. Archibald. Please lower your hand. Thank you.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right, I'm going to lower my hand first. How about them apples?
All
right. My name is Gavin Archibald, and I'm an aircraft owner, hangar owner, and pilot who operates from Chatham. It is a fact that modern approaches are safer for aircraft coming into Chatham and safer for the surrounding airport environment. The necessary steps needed to implement these, such as vegetation removal, add to the overall safety picture. While we can argue our support or lack of support for the plan as shown, we cannot make up our own facts. Aviation has always been and continues to be a very numbers, fact-driven industry, and maintaining the status quo and complexity of high-risk circling approaches coupled with antiquated, unsupported instrument approaches are not an option. These are the facts. What is the proof to support these facts? The clearest proof is the FAA. If we look at the What We Do section of the FAA website, the first statement is, quote, "We're responsible for the safety of civil aviation," end quote. Put more simply, the FAA giving approval for modern approaches at airports like Chatham is explicitly a statement on the safety of these improvements. And just to close, I want to thank the Airport Commission for their continued support of aviation activities at the Chatham Airport. That's all.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We seem to be getting a little bit of feedback. I don't know, someone might have their mic on, it's not speaking. It might be someone on one of the call-in lines, I'm not sure. But if everyone could check and mute their mics except for the speaker, I would appreciate it, including commissioners. Mr. Sandberg.
Yep, right here. Give me a second.
Yep.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Good.
I wanted to thank you for the work you're doing and introduce myself. Joseph Sandberg. I'm an Orleans homeowner. I'm a Chatham Airport tenant for the last 6 years. I'm an instrument instructor as well. And I'm going to limit my comments tonight to the safety-related issues as opposed to value of community airports. But as far as the safety issues, I would speak highly in favor of alternative 4. As it stands right now, the current system that we have in terms of instrument approaches, we've got to one runway, and that's runway 24. So that provides the only straight-in approach that we currently have. If the winds don't favor that runway, that means that we have to circle to runway 6 off of that. And the current approach off the 4 route of 4 runway 6 is an NDB approach. That's the antiquated radio beacon that we were talking about. And that only allows for a circling approach. So put it simply, that means that instead of lining up and following a straight line right down to the runway very safely, very efficiently, it means that you have to find the airport and circle around to it in conditions that generally are going to be low visibility. That's why the approach is there. So in terms of safety enhancements, both adding RNAV approaches that would give us straight into both runways would be incredibly beneficial, and getting rid of an NDB radio beacon, which has to be maintained on the ground, which is a lot less accurate than satellite capabilities, I think would be a major enhancement. And with respect to the one other issue, which was the noise abatement issue, also what was mentioned before, lower power approaches, straight in, avoiding having to circle the airport in order to land because of wind conditions or the existing approach makes a lot more sense. So I don't want to go over my time. I appreciate everybody's interest in this, and I rise strongly in favor of alternative 4. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Zemetis.
Good evening. My name is Terry Zemetis, and I live at 18 Lakeshore Lane in Chatham. During the summer months and some of the winter months, I'm hoping to retire here full-time. My primary interest here is with respect to homeowners. I'm here, my family's here, my grandchildren are here. We're directly under the flight path to and from runway 6 and 24. We moved here in 1994. The airport was here. We were well aware of it. And it's been a great enjoyment for us to watch the planes come and go. We are, of course, interested in the maximum amount of safety, and the GPS approaches being offered suggest to us that that's the most safe thing for the pilots and for those of us on the ground beneath us. I have been an airport commissioner in my hometown for more than a decade. We went through similar situation with an NDB approach in the late 1990s. To give you a sense of the technology that was abandoned back then, we had a GPS approach installed in our local airport when I was the chairman there. My background includes being a state court trial judge, and a pilot. So my experience is multifaceted here, and I'm strongly in favor of alternative number 4 for the safety of homeowners such as myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Let's see, Mr. Gersberger. You need to unmute, Mr. Gersberger. There you go.
Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Peter Gersberger, and I have been flying into Chatham Airport for the past 45 years. I started flying in 1976. Last year, I received the Master Aviator Award from the FAA for 50 years of incident-free flying. So I've been around the sky for quite a while, and very grateful to have been able to do that. I think, one of the things that has been really has become apparent, if you listen to the various pilots that have spoken, we are interested in safety, as you are, as you people who live close to the airport, you're concerned about safety. Well, we're concerned about safety because we're in the airplane, we have our families in the airplane, we have our passengers in the airplane. And having this new technology available is much, much better than circling the airport at 600 feet, trying to stay out of the clouds. And the cloud, when you talk about a 600-foot ceiling, it's not like a blanket. It's not even, it's ragged. So you may be popping in and out of some scattered clouds as you make your circle, and you're trying to keep the airport in sight so you can maneuver to land. And in terms of noise, a couple of people have raised this point. When we are coming downwind, we're configuring the airplane for landing. What does that mean? It means we have our landing gear down. It means we have partial flaps. And that means we have to carry power to maintain that 600-foot altitude. Guess what? That makes a lot of noise. So the straight-in approach has so many benefits, not just for us, but for all of you. It reduces noise, it increases safety, we overfly fewer homes. So I'm a very, very strong supporter of Alternative 4. And I think all of you, and I know you're concerned about safety, I think if you understand a little bit about what we experience when we're approaching the airport, you can see that Alternative 4 is safer for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, Rick Fieri.
Actually, I'll correct you there, Hunley, if you can hear me okay. My name is Rick Fiery.
Oh, Fiery. Okay, sorry. Maybe I'm thinking of the guy on the Food Network.
Like I'm on fire, yeah. Guy Fieri, yeah. Right. So my name is Rick Fiery. I'm a full-time Chatham resident, and I recently moved into 202 North Skyline Drive on Great Hill. And before that, from 2009, I actually lived at 12 Katy Ford Road, right next to the airport. So I'm fully aware there are many things to consider here, including the impact on airport abutters, which I don't want to minimize. But since I only have 3 minutes, I'm going to just limit it to safety and noise impacts. Interestingly enough, my new house has been specifically mentioned at past airport commission meetings, and even in a letter to the editor at a local newspaper, as being potentially at risk for removal due to the potential approaches and some of the navigation easements. As you can imagine, that kind of got my attention when we were looking at the house. And because of that, my wife and I looked at the airport approaches in detail before we made the decision to purchase the house. After doing so, we weren't concerned. And only because it's relevant to that conclusion and kind of the ongoing discussion here, I should describe my background. I am an instrument-rated private pilot with experience flying into Chatham since 2010 on the current approaches. Additionally, a company that I founded many, many, many years ago developed three-dimensional civil engineering design software to model different types of projects, including airports. And our software was used to model in 3D the runways, the taxiways, the earthwork at Denver International Airport, at the Hong Kong International Airport, and many others that you've probably heard of. But I think more relevant to this, and more specifically, we also built a prototype app for the US Air Force to rapidly design approaches for forward operating bases, where we modeled in 3D all the approach paths, the multiple layers of safety zones required to detect obstacle conflicts, as well as the existing condition of the ground and the surfaces around it. So I'm really looking at these issues through that lens of experience. And I can say, as a new homeowner on Great Hill, I really can only advocate for the safest and quietest approaches possible for my new neighbors and my family, quite honestly. It's absolutely clear to me that the safest approaches are the GPS LPV approaches. Realistically, quite honestly, the minimum descent altitude for the approach to Great Hill is probably going to be a little bit higher than people think because of the obstacles and the water tanks around there. And that's actually going to push the missed approach point back out towards Pleasant Bay, where planes will start to climb away from Great Hill. So I'm not worried about planes coming into my house with the LPV approaches. On the flip side, the way we are right now, a key point I want to make is that just because an airport approach can be made to a lower altitude, that doesn't mean it's less safe than approach made to a higher altitude. So approaches where the pilot levels off, adds power, puts flaps out, starts looking out of the cockpit to locate the runway while looking back at the instruments isn't nearly as safe as flying down that glide path to a decision height. So my plea to the Airport Commission is simple. Please implement the quietest and safest approaches possible for the sake of my neighbors and my family, and that's the LPV approaches. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. I don't see any other hands up, and so at this time, I would like to, yes, I would like to invite our engineer, Mr. Karen, to make some comments, and possibly Mr. Doucette from the FAA if he has anything to say as well. So, Matt.
Hey there, Huntley. No, I just wanted to jump on real quickly and just make sure that I am crystal clear that all comments will be provided and sent to the FAA and MassDOT, as well as the Commission, and obviously GALE Associates, and we'll discuss all of those. There's certainly no cherry picking, and in fact, FAA, as you just mentioned, is on the call this evening, so they are privy to all of the comments that have been made this evening, and just wanted to be crystal clear on that. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Doucette, do you have any comments for this evening?
Yes, thank you. The only comment I was going to make was the one that Matt just made. Every comment gets to me. If people want to send the comments directly to me, sometimes people do that. So that's perfectly fine. Nobody gets in the way of the comments coming to the state of the federal agencies. And then we incorporate them before the EA is done and the decision is written. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And for all of those listening, and if there's anyone else that anyone knows who needs to get in touch or send comments, the comment period is open until July 6th at midnight. So if you have anybody to comment on the EA, please, you'll find a link on the town website. Please direct your friends to that for the EA. And send any comments you might have to the Airport Commission. And their email address is very simply airportcommission@chatham-ma.gov. And speaking of some of the comments I heard tonight, I would just like to let everyone know that there is a new link on the website, the airport website, Airport Commission website, regarding resources for available to the public for reporting aircraft concerns. That could be noise complaints, it could be low-flying aircraft, it could be anything that might relate to the airport itself or something you might want to get to the commission. But the email addresses for all who you would need to get in touch with are there. And that's brand new. Any closeout comments from the commissioners? Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
So moved.
Second.
Makes the motion. And who was that? I'm sorry. Mr. Cortese, was that you?
Mr. Cortese, yeah.
Okay. Let me just write it down. Okay. We have a motion is seconded to adjourn the meeting. Commissioner Burke,
Yes.
Commissioner Cortese,
Yes.
Donovan, not Commissioner Galen,
Yes.
Commissioner Owens,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox,
Yes.
and Commissioner Harris, yes. I thank you all for your participation tonight. I thank the public for your comments. They will all be taken into consideration as we move forward. And again, like I said, we have until July 6th to get those comments in to the Airport Commission email address, or you can send a letter by snail mail, whatever floats your boat. All right, thank you all very much, and we will now formally adjourn the meeting. Thank you.